Special thanks to Tokyo Treat and Sakurako for sponsoring today's video. The Espada have access to a ton of totally crazy, broken, and in some instances, yes, seemingly unbeatable abilities among them. From Xyloporo's Gabriel, which resurrects him from death, to Barragan's Respirar, which allows him to rot anything in his vicinity to dust, they are the 10 strongest Arankar for a reason. Sure, they might lose almost every single fight they're involved in, but taking a step back, at the end of the day, they deserve to hold that title, and in isolation absolutely wield some of the most powerful abilities in the series. And yet, there is one ability from among the Espada that I've always felt never quite received its fair dues. There is one ability that seems so absurdly overpowered to me that I've consistently been surprised at the lack of discussion surrounding it. An ability the likes of which we had never seen before, and unsurprisingly never saw again. One that, if used properly in the right context, in the right way, feels like it could have presented the Shinigami with an insurmountable challenge to overcome. In fact, at least in my opinion, it may very well be the most underrated, yet truly broken ability in Bleach, and that's Starrk and Lilinet's Wolfpack. So, when the conversation includes such absurd abilities as those previously mentioned and more within the Espada alone, how can Stark's Wolfpack stand out? Why does it feel underrated? And does it deserve to be held aloft on the pantheon of Bleach's most broken abilities? Let's take a look and find out. Before we get started, as always, do consider hitting subscribe down below if you enjoyed today's video and want to see more just like this on the channel. It all helps in our journey to reach 300,000 subs, and I really would appreciate each and every one of your support. Also, check out my Patreon as well, where you can take your support for the channel another step further. You get your name in the credits of every single video as a Patreon supporter, and at the $2 tier or higher, you get all of my videos absolutely free of YouTube ads. So if that interests you, check out the Patreon as well. Again, it would be greatly appreciated. And speaking of supporting the channel, before we get started on the video, first a word from today's sponsor. Alright, we're officially in spring now. Don't get me wrong, I like winter. I've got nothing against it, but it's about time for a change here. And what better way to ring that in than with, you guessed it, these fresh new boxes from Tokyo Treat and Sakurako. Tokyo Treat is an exclusive monthly snack box packed full with a carefully curated selection to help you experience Japanese culture from the comfort of your own home. This month the theme is Sakura Night Matsuri, and I have to say I love this imagery so much. The gentle light of the lanterns lining the sakura trees in the evening, it feels like quintessential Japanese springtime. And to celebrate that, this box is full of snacks specifically chosen to express this sentiment. From matcha latte Kit Kats, sakura roll cake, cherry blossom rice crackers, and more. Here we go, another month, another time to dive right in. It's looking pretty full. So as usual, we're going to kick things off with the Kit Kats. These are matcha latte. Truth be told, I'm not a coffee drinker at all. In fact, I don't drink hot drinks. So the real test will be to see if I like these. Yep, that's really nice. As you might expect, I don't have a lot of experience with matcha flavouring as someone who doesn't drink hot drinks, but this is really nice. This will have to do in its stead. Okay, now we're talking. This looks like a gummy of some kind. I'm going to consult the booklet to find out what this thing actually is. Okay, so this is a grape and soda soft candy. I love the flavour of grape. I love sour sweets. This is very much my sort of thing. Not suitable for vegetarians, so it's a good thing Jade's not here. Meanwhile, Sakurako's theme this month is called Sakura Moonlight Festival, and this springtime tradition is pretty much what its name implies. Taking the time to enjoy the natural beauty of the sakura beneath the moonlight. To reflect the festival itself, the box is filled with delicately crafted seasonal sweets like sakura cream cookies, sakura anko cakes, and more, all of which pair perfectly with the included ume pink tea. Additionally, the month's tableware item is this sakura glass. Oh wow, that's very nice. Wow, look at that. Okay, well the Anko cakes are pretty easy to find. This is a pretty huge bag. And then we have a strawberry tartlet. So let's do the tartlet first. See, this is very much like a jam tart here in the UK. Absolutely delicious. So this should go down a treat, pardon the pun. Very nice, very artistic. This is going to be, I mean, this is kind of an eat it in one go thing, right? It's called a tartlet for a reason, so. Okay, so it says there's 2 of these Anko cakes in here, which makes me think they might be quite a bit bigger than I thought. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's a sizable cake right there. Wow, look at that. That's really cool. So I think this is filled with a sort of sweet bean paste, which of course is very common in Japan. Not so common here, but I'm pretty used to it by now, and it's actually very nice. There it is. Dangerous. It's dangerously easy to eat this. Considering the size of these things, it's dangerously easy. As we've mentioned, each box also comes with a cultural booklet that features, you know, snack descriptions, allergen information, and of course some insights into the cultural theming of the month's boxes, which is also really nice to give you a bit of context around what you're eating and why. There's the boxes, that's it for April's boxes. A big thank you to Tokyo Treat and Sakurako for supporting the channel as always. So if you'd like to pick up these boxes to help celebrate Japan's legendary cherry blossoms and of course the start of spring, then visit the link in either the description or the pinned comment below and use my code for an exclusive offer of $5 off of your first order. Not only do you save money, but you directly support the channel as well, and I greatly appreciate it. So thanks everyone, and enjoy. So, what exactly is Starrk's Wolfpack ability? First revealed in chapter 372 at the very tail end of his tenure in the manga, Starrk manifests the full extent of his power in a truly dramatic fashion. His 2 Vizard opponents, Love and Rose, look up into the sky in shock and horror to see Starrk standing before them, an entire army of ethereal ghost-like flaming wolves marching behind him, rows and rows of the beasts preparing to fight alongside the Espada. As the next phase of the battle begins, however, something peculiar happens. The wolves ready themselves, and to kickstart the assault, Starrk simply says, "Let's go, Starrk," as if talking to himself, before the wolves suddenly leap into action, waves of them charging the Vizard from afar. The Vizard clash with the oncoming wolves using their respective shikai. Love swings his Tengumaru at the first wave, seemingly demolishing the wolves with a massive hit, while Rose reveals his shikai Kinshara and carves through the next wave with a swish of his golden whip. Quickly, however, the Vizard are disheartened to discover that the wolves won't die. Instead, they reform like flames before their eyes, and there's seemingly no end to them or their attack. Even when Rose apparently kills one, 3 more emerge from the ground behind the Vizard and launch another attack, bursting out from between the cracks in the rubble like waterspouts, capable of freely altering their shape and composition to strike from anywhere. It's here that the true devastation of the wolves is revealed. As they chomp down on Love and Rose, the beasts detonate in massive explosions. The blast from a lone pair of these wolves towers over Karakura Town, completely demolishing the surrounding area. It's difficult to fully gauge the true scope of the devastation caused by these blasts. We can estimate based on the size of the buildings being destroyed in Karakura Town, and while it seems definitely smaller than the destruction caused by Ulquiorra's Lanza del Relampago, also consider that Starrk himself literally isn't doing anything right now. At least this core main body. He himself is fighting alongside Lilanet as the wolves themselves, of course. Again, comparing these 2 attacks, Starrk's Wolfpack and Ulquiorra's Lanza del Relampago, feels like apples and oranges to some degree, but they are also the 2 closest counterparts among the Espada. While Ulquiorra can conjure as many lances as he wants, he himself has to aim and throw them, and admits they are difficult to wield, and we see him basically missing not quite a point-blank shot, but Full Hollow Ichigo doesn't even move to avoid it, while Starrk's are comparatively smaller, more compact, and much, much easier to use, since he's literally just guiding himself like a missile. He is in full control from the moment these wolves launch to the moment they make contact and explode, and he wields an unending army of them. Speaking of which, after taking the first explosion on the chin, Love and Rose escape the blast, only to instantly find themselves surrounded again. This next wave of explosions racks the sky with a tumultuous blue glow, and as the fires dissipate, we see that this time Love and Rose are heavily injured, burned, and bloodied. While it does seem as though they can keep fighting for now, the fact is that Starrk is capable of warding off two Vizard captains wielding their hollow masks and their Shikai without so much as lifting a finger. Had their fight kept going, there's no reason to believe they'd have suddenly found a way to deal with the Wolfpack. And of course it's here as well that Starrk reveals the insane truth, the truth that makes this one of the most broken abilities in the series, pretty much without question. For you see, Starrk openly admits that if the wolves were made of Cero, which was the logical conclusion initially made not just by we the reader, but by Love himself in the manga, they wouldn't be able to hurt fighters as powerful as Love and Rose. And so instead, the wolves are made of Stark's own soul. That incredible power that was once so strong, the original combined version of Starrk and Lilanet could kill masses of hollows simply by being around them. That incredible power that, when split, manifested as a new autonomous Arankar in Lilanet rather than a Zanpakuto like every single other Arankar. Starrk is literally dividing his own soul again and again, and launching it at the Vizard as a series of unstoppable warheads. While it seems unlikely that he would be able to do this forever, as presumably he would eventually weaken himself too much, the reality that we see on the page is that at this point in the fight, with Love and Rose already seriously injured, Starrk looks completely nonplussed, and presumably could keep on doing this indefinitely. And that tracks with what we know about the character, about that abnormal well of power that I mentioned earlier. So, why does this power stand out? Like I said, there is no other ability quite like this among the Arankar. The wolves are literally both him and Lilanet, as reflected in Kubo's chapter Omake sketches from 372 and 373, which depicts Starrk and Lilanet as a pair of wolves overseeing command of their pack, which again is themselves. And what's truly fascinating about this is how similar to the Shinigami this makes Starrk feel. In another video not that long ago, I brought up the idea that despite their seeming hybrid nature, the Arankar really just feel like an evolution of the Hollow, due to the fact that while they break their masks to acquire power that superficially looks like that of a Shinigami, the reality is they don't wield Shinigami power at all. Sure, they have a Zanpakuto, but it is essentially a shell. That connection to a Zanpakuto that a Shinigami has simply does not exist with an Arankar, because their Zanpakuto are just a conduit for their true hollow power to re-emerge. It's not like the Vizard either, who do feel truly hybrid in nature, and are capable of wielding techniques that a Shinigami would never be able to do, like a Cero, for example. You just don't see the Arankar doing that. You don't see them using any Shinigami techniques, which is telling. However, and I imagine you probably know where I'm going with this now, when using his Wolfpack, Starrk becomes the Arankar closest to a true hybrid by definition of the mixing of Hollow and Shinigami. When he says, "Let's go Starrk," talking to the wolves, he is literally talking to himself, a living embodiment of both his and Lilanet's soul, which is much closer to the relationship a Shinigami has with their Zanpakuto. It's not one-to-one, obviously, but it is by far the closest we see. If we assume that the Wolfpack is Stark's bankai, let's say, then his relationship to it, while hollow in nature, thematically feels like that of a Shinigami and their Zanpakuto. The blade is me. In this sense, the Wolfpack quite literally is Starrk and Lilanet, which is spelled out for us in the manga, which is really cool. And it's another of the many understated details that Kubo put into Stark's character that lifts him a cut above the rest in my eyes. Starrk wields the Wolfpack in the same way a Shinigami wields their Zanpakuto, that they and their weapon, their ability, are one and the same. This is a rudimentary analysis, but to really cut a long story short, he is a very special Arrancar, completely unlike the rest of the army. And again, it stands out because it seems so completely unstoppable. The wolves cannot be stopped. They don't conform to natural law, and for the Vizard, it is almost as though they are fighting the elements. The wolves seem to move like fire and water, and slip through Love and Rose's fingers at all times. I really do wish we had seen a little bit more from this ability against additional opponents, or even one or both of Love and Rose's bankai, because I struggle to think of a means to defeat this power in a conventional setting. Think about it, right? When you get down to it, if we pit two commonly matched up characters together, Starrk and Barragan, Barragan doesn't stand a chance against this power using everything we know. We see from his battle with Hachi and Soifon that so long as he is confined to a space where he cannot escape the blast itself, Barragan will be damaged by an explosion. It essentially overwrites his Respirar, because the attack, the actual explosion itself, is instantaneous. Imagine Starrk fighting Barragan. Starrk, from afar, simply commands his wolves to surround Barragan, to get as close as they literally can, and then explode all at once, and voila, you've got an unending series of Jacko Raiko-Ben going off in the sky at all times, in close proximity to Barragan. And unlike Soifon's bankai, the wolves aren't rigid, and they aren't predictable. Starrk can simply surround Barragan to avoid him escaping, and it seems to me like it's basically over. I guess that's underselling both Barragan and Respirar a little bit, but hopefully the core conceit of that point still comes across. Again, I only wish we'd seen more from this power, which leads me nicely to my next point. So if the ability is this ridiculous, how could it possibly be underrated? Why does it feel underrated? Why would it be underrated at all? Well, there are actually a few reasons why, and it really comes down, at the end of the day, to presentation. The Wolfpack looks the part, don't get me wrong, but the way it's used leaves a bit to be desired. In the manga, despite absolutely dominating Love and Rose with this ability in chapter 373, the Wolfpack completely, inexplicably disappears from the moment Starrk is stabbed through the back by Kyoraku, leading to his ultimate defeat in chapter 374. I guess you could argue that Kyoraku maybe dealt enough damage to Starrk in that moment to, I don't know, shut off the ability? But that doesn't seem to make any sense to me whatsoever, especially considering the fact that the Wolfpack uses Starrk and Lilanette's raw soul. It's not even Reryoku. As long as the two of them are still alive, they should be able to keep conjuring new wolves to attack with. Honestly, the likeliest answer to me is that Kubo needed the fight to be over, and realised that the wolves would present a massive problem for Kyoraku, and so they were just instantly written out in that cliffhanger. This is problematic though, because ultimately the wolves never get the chance to cause real damage against opponents who, let's face it, actually matter. Sure, the way they devastate Love and Rose is both cool and very telling, but Love and Rose don't really matter in the grand scheme of this fight. Kyoraku is the true opponent, and seeing the wolves used against him would have been that much more impactful. And then there's the fact that, while they don't really matter, neither Love nor Rose use their bankai. Had one, or both of them, been at full power and still found themselves completely overwhelmed by the wolves, it would have again been more impactful. Then there's the fact that Peculiarly, the anime actually flips this issue on its head, and somehow makes the wolves look both weaker and less reliable. I mentioned a moment ago that it's weird that the wolves just vanish when Starrk is stabbed, but they're not the only thing that's vanished by this point in the manga. Lilinet goes from being a genuine presence even once Starrk has released, to again disappearing entirely. Now, the reasoning seems sound enough. Lilinet was Stark's guns, and Stark's guns disappear once he uses the Wolfpack ability. Likely because Lilinet herself is getting involved amidst the pack. Though, to be totally honest, I'm not sure that makes much sense either, because if Stark's main body can survive the usage of the ability just fine, then to be honest, so too should Lilinet as the pistols, but that's another story. Anyway, Lilinet does, for all intents and purposes, totally disappear at this point. Now, the anime tries to fix these issues by having the Wolfpack remain for the battle against Kyoraku and having the wolves take on Lilinet's personality. This is done to stir up the emotional stakes for Stark's character in a way that admittedly wasn't there in the manga, and while effective on a surface level, it also results in an ability that no longer really makes any sense. Kyoraku is capable of using Bushogoma to, I guess, blow away the wolves, even though we've already established they aren't tangible in that sense. Bushogoma should not be able to do this, and this kills Lilinet, which again seems absurd, because the two of them aren't supposed to be separate in that sense. Both Starrk and Lilinet exist in the wolves and in the core body, as is shown by Kubo's Omake sketches. Making the wolves so apparently delicate in the anime, and it's so devastating to lose them, makes them look not only weaker, but yeah, less reliable on the whole. And then, finally, there is the simple fact that this ability comes very late in the game, and is only used for a very short amount of time. Unlike, say, Respirar again, which dominated not only Barragan's fight, but also his character, the Wolfpack simply comes and goes, especially in the manga. Overcoming Respirar was a huge component of not only Barragan's fight, but defeating him too. The Wolfpack is just another ability. The reality, though, is that it should have and could have been treated like Respirar in that sense. But it's amazing to think about the relevance that Respirar has for Barragan's character, when even his unreleased form had an unbelievable ability too. While not on the same level as Respirar, Barragan's base form had the ability to slow down time in his immediate vicinity. Which, again, thinking about it, is kind of a reverse version of Respirar, but that in itself is totally broken, as we saw when Soifon kept trying to get close to him only to be captured each time. An ability that, by the way, basically totally shut her down. But no one ever talks about that ability because Respirar was more damaging, yes, flashier, yes, but crucially, the time dilation power was only around for a single chapter. Instead, Respirar is what's truly remembered because Barragan's entire fight revolves around it. Finally then, is Stark's Wolfpack the overall strongest individual ability used by an Espada? That's very difficult to say in my opinion, as it really depends on your definition of the strongest. Does Ulquiorra's Lanza del Relámpago cause more destruction per attack? It certainly seems like it. Is Gabriel resurrecting someone from the dead more inherently impressive? I would say so. Does Respirar's absolute strength elevate it above the rest? Perhaps. But in response to all of those, I would say that Stark's Wolfpack embodies the same strengths that he does that make him ultimately worthy of the title of the first Espada. While other Espada might do one thing better, Starrk really does have it all. He's not so much a jack of all trades as he is a master of them all. He's extraordinarily fast, perceptive, intelligent, and capable, and that translates to the Wolfpack as well. They are insanely quick, seemingly unending in number, apparently unkillable, at least in the manga, massively devastating in their own right, and extremely easy to control, because they are literally Starrk and Lilinet. That one nugget of information is the absolute key that pushes them above the rest. There is no degree of separation between user and ability. The user is the ability and vice versa here. Like I said before, the blade is me feels as though it is represented here in some form, whereas no other Rankar truly reaches that state. And this is even crazier when you consider Starrk is a naturally born Rankar, which means he and Lilinet achieved all of this totally organically and on their own. So yeah, to wrap up, to be honest, I think in terms of individual abilities, the Wolfpack may in fact be the strongest of any Espada ability. Respira is more absolute, but as mentioned earlier, I think if you put the two in a room and had them fight at full power, the Wolfpack would overwhelm Respira's capabilities. Respira is very, very strong. It's also very, very quick, and in fact, its ability is an absolute rule. A little like, say, Liege's the X-axis. However, it is restricted, it is limited, and it is laser focused in its utility. Again, the anime kind of embellished things a little bit by making it so that Baragon could swing his axe, Gran Kaida, and launch waves of Respirar from it. That never happens in the manga, and so we have something that feels quite small in comparison to the Wolfpack, whose utility is enormous, and which at its core is much more freeform. Alright everyone, but that's it for today's video, a deeper dive look at Starrk's ultimate ability, Starrk and Lilinet's ultimate ability, the Wolfpack, wherein they split and divide their own soul, seemingly endlessly, seemingly without cost, and then use that soul to transform it into wolf warheads, which they then control freely to attack and detonate upon their opponents. In my opinion, it seems insanely broken, yet I can't help but feel it is underrated, it goes under-discussed, and hopefully today I've helped to shine a light on why I think this ability is so special, so incredible, and why you should give it a second thought if you're having a discussion or a debate about which Espada maybe comes out on top of the rest. Absolutely, Starrk's Wolfpack should play a role there, it should be a factor. Alright everyone, once again, thank you so very much for watching. Consider hitting subscribe down below if you haven't done already. Check out the Patreon as well. Consider supporting me over there. It really does help out enormously. And all of you, no matter if you're just watching, if you're here, if you're commenting or whatever, it does make a humongous difference. So thank you all so very much, and it's an absolute pleasure to have you here. Alright everyone, until next time, I'll catch you later, and I'll see you then.